MiG-25 took to the wing in 1964. Test pilot Alexander Fedotov performed the first flight of the prototype on March 6, and in September he took the prototype fighter interceptor into the air. The MiG-25 fighter, first demonstrated in 1967 at an aviation festival in Moscow, made a shocking impression on Western experts, and its flight became the occasion for special hearings in the Congress. Lawmakers were alarmed by the sharp qualitative breakthrough of Soviet aviation and decided to intensify the development of F-14 and F-15 fighters. By then, NATO intelligence had already advertised the MiG-25. It is reported that the Scout FOXBAT V, detected by radar, flew at a speed of 3,395 kilometers. And on October 5, 1967, test pilot Mikhail Komarov on an experimental aircraft, created on the basis of MiG-25, took away from the Americans, despite the greatest speed capabilities of their strategic Scout Lockheed SR-71A. One of the records, in flight along a closed 500-kilometer route, was Concord speed of 2,981 kilometers per hour. He left his airfield, as they call it, beautifully. Belenko knew the system of the air defense area, knew the zones through which it was possible to pass undetected. During the third flight into the zone, he abruptly went down and between the hills at low altitude, directed the plane toward the Sea of Japan. The radio equipment of the Soviet air defense units in the Far East detected a target at a range of about 100 kilometers from the coastline and at an altitude of about 500 meters, moving away towards the island of Hokkaido, but mistook it for a Japanese or American reconnaissance aircraft whose flights near our borders were not uncommon. In those years, rumors circulated in the officer community that Belenko's flight to Japan had been rushed by CIA officers who felt that KGB officers had, figuratively speaking, tailed their agent. And today we can say that the ground for such rumors was not groundless. The USSR then firmly demanded the immediate return of the airplane, warning that a different decision by Tokyo could have consequences for Soviet-Japanese relations. Still, the Japanese side went along with the Americans. From the landing site, the MiG-25 was transported by American Air Force transport plane to Japan's Hyakuri Air Base. Despite the protest of the USSR, about 20 American specialists disassembled the aircraft literally to the bone, started the engines, turned on the onboard radar, measured the spectrum of thermal radiation, took samples of glass and metal. According to Russian experts, study MiG-25 was not without the participation of Belenko. The airplane was returned to the USSR in disassembled form. American experts highly appreciated the airplane. Only the electronics failed to impress them. Much later, in one of the books published in the United States, noted, American experts could not understand how their Soviet rivals in the 60s managed to create a fighter aircraft capable not only to fly at a speed more than 3 times the speed of sound, but also to carry 4 heavy and powerful missiles at an altitude of 80,000 feet above the ground. Even the newest American fighter jets, created already in the 70s, were not capable of this. And here is the opinion of the Chief of Intelligence of the Air Force, General George Kigan. The value of what Belenko gave us is so great that it cannot be expressed in dollars. After Belenko's betrayal, the Soviets had to change the secret cipher, I am mine, and it cost the country a lot, billions of hard rubles at that time. But the MiG-25 did not die. In 1978, the Gorky aircraft plant began serial production of MiG-25 PD, equipped with engines with extended life and radio sight, Sapphire 25, replacing the Smerch F, the characteristics of which were revealed as a result of the hijacking of Belenko's plane in Japan and improved armament. In 1979, serial production of the MiG-25 MP, Russia's first fourth-generation fighter, began in Gorky. At that time, NATO assigned the MiG-25 MP the code designation Foxhound, English Hound, while in the USSR it was put into combat service in 1991 and renamed the MiG-31. The result is unattainable even for airplanes of the early 21st century. The Soviet MiG-25 fighter aircraft earned the title of the world's fastest weaponized combat aircraft, the world's first mass-produced fighter to reach the 3,000 km per hour speed milestone. By that time, the USSR had effective anti-aircraft missile systems that hit targets at high altitude, but they had a relatively short range, up to 40 kilometers. It was impossible to cover the entire territory of the country with them, so a high-altitude fighter interceptor with a supersonic flight radius of more than 500 kilometers, a powerful onboard radar station, and long-range air-to-air missiles was needed. The task was assigned to Artyom Mikoyan Design Bureau and Nizhny Novgorod Aviation Association. And by the end of the 1960s, a multi-purpose high-altitude fighter with a practical ceiling of 20,700 to 23,000 meters and a supersonic range of 1,250 kilometers was developed. By the standards of its time, the design of the MiG-25, produced in two versions, fighter interceptor and reconnaissance bomber, was considered outstanding, as it allowed to fly at speeds 3 times higher than the speed of sound. Most interesting fact: in 1970, several MiG-25s were sent for testing to Egypt, which was at that time at war with Israel. On assignment, the MiG-25 RB reconnaissance bomber at an altitude of 20,000 meters literally swept over Israeli positions with an arrow, performing flawless operational photography. No one even had time to react. As a result, Western experts concluded that the MiG-25 can be shot down only on takeoff and landing, while it is gaining speed. It is impossible to catch up with it in flight. In 1972, after the emergence of fourth-generation fighters in the USA and the development of the new Rockwell B-1A strategic bomber, the MiG-25 was modernized. The aircraft was equipped with more powerful R-15BF 2-300 engines with maximum afterburner thrust increased to 13,500 kgf. As a result, the fighter with full missile armament is able to reach a speed corresponding to M=3 against M=2. 83 of the original interceptor. MiG-25 Tryon powerful Sapphire 25 radar and automatic fire control system, which, receiving radio telemetry commands from ground-based guidance stations, without the pilot's participation could bring the aircraft to the target. The MiG-25 has been in the crosshairs of U.S. intelligence agencies since the first prototype aircraft were built. Every day the Pentagon learns more and more about the Soviet high-altitude supersonic airplane, but for a thorough study required a sample. And presumably in the mid-1970s, the bet was placed on Viktor Belenko, who made contact with U.S. intelligence. Belenko's co-workers at the Armavir School believe that he was recruited while still a cadet. Viktor, they say, was often seen with secret documents, which other cadets were not particularly interested. The second argument: Belenko diligently sought to serve in the unit, where there were the most modern at the time of the airplane's MiG-25P. And the third argument: on the eve of the flight, Belenko traveled to Vladivostok, ostensibly to meet with the American resident, from whom he received instructions on how and where to fly. According to this version, Belenko should have landed at the American airbase in Japan. A draft of the route diagram was found in the pilot's apartment, with indications of the course, altitude, and landing place on the flight segments. But there was fog over most of Hokkaido at that time. Others believe that he did not have enough fuel, and he had to land at a civilian airfield. Clearly, without noise did not do without. The landing of the plane saw a lot of people. Immediately appeared correspondence. If Belenko had been luckier, then, perhaps, no one would not have known where the airplane and the pilot had gone.